They left Illinois chasing the promise of California, sunshine, fertile land, and fortune waiting just beyond the horizon. But the road west was not kind. The so-called Hastings cutoff was no shortcut at all, costing them precious weeks. By the time the wagons reached the Sierra Nevada, winter had already closed in. Snow rose higher than cabins, higher than trees. Nearly 90 men, women, and children were trapped with no way forward, no way back. Food ran out, hope drained away. And in the silence of the mountains, desperation turned toward the unthinkable. The House of Six presents Snow, Starvation, and Survival. Welcome to the House of Six. I'm Jen.
I'm Jared.
Gee, he's being inappropriate again.
Not me.
Yep.
No. How we doing?
We're great.
Yeah.
We're great. Hope you're great, because we're great. And this is a podcast where each week I explore the history of crime and mystery, and Jared is pretty sure we're on a watch list now.
Huh.
Based on my internet searches alone.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't know where you're going. I never know what Jared's up to when you lead into that next. And Jared...
I have about 100 different
keep me guessing.
things to choose from, so I'm just going to rotate them out, and we'll have to get to episode 100 before I get through all of them.
Right.
And let's see if we stay married that long.
Shit. Okay.
We better, because we've got some big plans
Yeah.
for the new house we're moving to, and we'll do a big reveal about that, because we're super excited. We bought a new house. It's a lot different than the current one, and once we get there, I'm going to do some behind the scenes, the actual House of Six.
Okay. There you go. I like it.
Yeah. And so now we're going to talk about stuff for this episode. The case tonight is one about hope turned to horror. Sorry. Families chasing their dreams in the California sunshine only to end up in death and despair. Do you know what I'm going to talk about?
Nope.
Yep. This is the story of the Donner Party.
Okay.
Do you know anything about the Donner Party?
No.
Do you ring a bells?
Not really, I don't think.
Do you remember, this was for me in the 6th grade, so I don't know what that means for you. You were probably already graduated and like middle-aged.
Right, I was a senior. Yeah.
In high school?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So do you remember playing the game The Oregon Trail? Do you remember that?
No.
It was one of the first computer games that I ever played.
Oh, okay.
We played it in school, in the
didn't,
computer
but,
lab.
Right.
I think it was the teacher's way of keeping us busy and playing games. But in the game, you're on the Oregon Trail as an immigrant, if you will. And I think everybody died of dysentery in that game. I did, repeatedly.
Yeah.
Or like my wagon sunk into a quicksand and we all died. We all died.
I remember a little bit of that.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Is it going to be as riveting as Roanoke was for you?
I hope so.
The episode that will never air?
Yeah.
Because we got 30 minutes in and he was like, is this it? Like, this is like an entire fucking colony disappears off the face of the earth.
They moved.
And he is like, this is boring.
Yeah, it's the first time I've ever gone, we need to rethink this.
You weren't too happy about the Mary Celeste.
No, but that was, I wasn't, but still, that was, But this one, I was like, I solved it. They moved.
I found you. You're
Right,
in my house.
In my house.
Sebastian,
Yes.
I can't remember his last name.
Maniscalco. I'll ruin it, so sorry. Shout out to you.
Yeah, check him out. He's funny. Yep. So, let's go back. In the 1840s, your favorite time period, America was gripped by the manifest destiny. Do you remember us talking about manifest destiny when we talked about Edgar Allan Poe?
This is not supposed to be a test of Jared.
Your whole marriage is a test.
That's a different story.
So, manifest destiny was the idea presented by the government, no less, that America was destined and ordained by God to stretch from the Atlantic to the Pacific. And if that doesn't sound like white colonization, then you're on the wrong podcast. But essentially, newspapers printed it, politicians preached it. It was the thing to do. At the center of this push westward was the California Trail, which was a rough, dangerous extension of the Oregon Trail. It stretched nearly 2,000 miles from Missouri to California, crossing plains, deserts, and mountains. And it wasn't actually a road. It was basically just a path that had been previously pathed. And there were kind of like wagon trail ruts and things like that to designate it. And it was marked by rivers, bluffs, and probably the graves of everybody that didn't make it, because there was a lot. There's
Tom. We got to take a left here.
Left at Tom. For the first part of the journey, it overlapped with the Oregon Trail, and then running out of Independence or St. Joseph, Missouri, across the Platte Rivers into Wyoming was the California Trail. And just a recap of what the United States looked like at this point. In 1840, we had 26 states, but by 1846, which is the year of this case, we were up to 28 states. Florida and Texas had just joined. And by 1848 to 1849, after the Mexican-American War, the U.S. acquired California, Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, Nevada, and parts of Colorado and Wyoming, though they weren't states yet. So where the U.S. stopped at this point was on the east coast to the Mississippi Valley, and some of the Great Plains were all U.S. territory. West of Missouri, where the Donner Party started, that was frontier land. Basically unorganized territories of the Plains and the Rockies. Oregon was jointly occupied by Britain and the U.S. until 1846, being the Oregon Territory, and California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico were still Mexico at this point in time. So this is all colonization bullshit, is what the manifest destiny actually was. Okay. Colonization bullshit. Oregon country, we were fighting with Britain over it, and California in the Southwest was flat out Mexico, but the U.S. government was telling people to go settle there. Not officially, but unofficially, they were encouraging people to emigrate. And the whole point of all this was, if we have enough of our people there, it's ours.
Yeah, that's the way it worked.
Yeah, that's bullshit. And let's not even, and I'll get into it, not even mention all of the Native Americans that were already here for thousands of years, by the way, that we just, flag. They don't have flags. We have flags. Flags mean you own it. It's bullshit. Just wait for it. It's going to happen. I'm going to get up on the soapbox. This is how we're starting out. Families like the Donners thought that they were chasing opportunity, and, in reality, this is a whole geopolitical, let's get as much land as we possibly can. But going back to the Donner Party and the Oregon and the California Trail, for this journey, timing was everything. The journey in its whole took 4 to 6 months on average. If you leave too early, the spring rains could flood rivers and turn the prairies into bogs, which that's bad for wagons, obviously. If you leave too late, winter would shut down the mountains. Every immigrant knew that the clock was ticking the moment they started out. And this was a very, very dangerous trip. Supplies mattered. You needed food for half a year. Animals strong enough to survive the trek and carry all of your crap. Wagons that were sturdy to cross deserts to mountains. And if you miscalculated, you not just risked your fortune in a new land, but obviously the lives of you and your entire family.
It'd be stressful.
This would be incredibly stressful.
I think the animal thing, in terms of having animals that you know can make it that duration, would be the most stressful. Food can be figured out, but animals that could take it. Sorry, that was just my thought.
No, you're absolutely right. And hang on to that thought because I'm going to tell you a little bit about that in a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. The harsh truth of it is that there were only a handful of ways to cross the continent, and each had its own dangers. There was the Platte River Road across the plains, the South Pass over the Rockies, the treacherous Nevada deserts, and then the Sierra Nevada, which was the last and most unforgiving barrier before California. And if you missed any windows to get into any of those territories, it was bad news bears.
Pretty good
all
beer
around.
as well, though.
What?
Sierra Nevada's pretty good beer as well.
I don't think I've ever had that
You
as a
wouldn't
beer.
like it.
Is it an
You
actual
wouldn't
good?
like it. You wouldn't like it.
Oh, is it like hoppy?
Yeah, I think it's like a pale ale-ish, if I remember correctly. You wouldn't like it.
I wouldn't like it.
Sorry.
Nope. Yep, that's true. So the question is, knowing all of these dangers is why would anybody do this? Why would you risk everything to do that? And
Was it gold?
sometimes this was around the California gold rush times. Usually that wasn't entire families though. Not to this extent. This is more just about opportunity. And this is really getting into the heart of what Americans live by now, I think, is the land of opportunity, land of the free. This is the time period that really kind of sparked all of that. Anyways, but there was an opportunity. Land in the East was getting scarce already. Farms were divided. Soil was really tired at this point in time. But really, a lot of this was just a promise for the fertile valleys in California. And it was just too much to resist. You get free land, first of all, because it's not really free. It's already established, but people are taking it. But the lure wasn't just the land, it was about reinvention. The frontier was painted as a blank slate, a place where class, reputation, or failure back east didn't matter anymore. If you could survive the journey, you could pretty much start from scratch. But this was also about ambition. The West was romanticized in newspapers, books, and speeches as America's destiny. So to go west was to become a part of history and prove yourself brave and bold and taming the wilderness. And
Good advertising.
It really was. It really was. But with this ambition, so many people went in completely blind. And the dangers, even though well known, like disease, starvation, hostile terrain, people still gambled. It's like they've pretended that all of this risk wasn't involved. It's really strange.
Yeah, or just, accepted it and said, that's what we're doing.
This is what we're doing. And you know what? If you're back then and if you're a woman and the man says we're moving and you're like, well, fuck, I guess we're moving.
Bitch, get in the wagon.
That's right, bitch. Anyways, so that's the backdrop. By 1846, thousands were on the move, chasing their dreams and land of opportunity. And among them was a group of immigrants whose journey would end in tragedy. And this is the story of the Donner Party. Who were they? The Donner Party was not a single family. It was a collection of families, farmers, tradesmen, hired hands, children, old people, grandparents, if you will, all chasing a better life in California. At the head of the group were George and Jacob Donner, prosperous farmers from Illinois in their 60s. In the 1840s, that feels a little up there in age. Yeah. But experienced they were. They were respected and determined to secure fertile land in California before the flood of immigrants they all knew were coming. They're the immigrants. But anyways. And then we have James Reed. He was an ambitious Irish immigrant who had married into money. He was not just chasing farmland. He wanted wealth, reputation, and a fresh start for his family. Virginia Reed later wrote the advice that defined the tragedy. Never take no cutoffs and hurry along as fast as you can. that's not an 1846 reading of the tragedy we're about to go into. I just don't know what is. And I don't even know what that accent was.
That's
Do you?
good. That's good.
Was it?
Yeah.
It felt like more mountain than... I don't know. I don't have the accents, people. Anyways, around them were dozens of other families. There were some single men that also joined. Charles Stanton was one of them, and they joined for safety or work. And then there were also teamsters that drove the wagons and tended the cattle.
Okay.
I think those were hired men, the teamsters.
Right.
That sounds like a hired man sort of role.
Okay.
Although when I think of teamsters, I think Jimmy Hoffa.
Right.
It's a different kind of teamster, if you will. These are cowboy teamsters. In total, the party numbered close to 90 when they left Missouri in May 1846. They packed up the wagons with flour, bacon, beans, rifles, tools, bedding, and all of their family heirlooms, of course. They believed they had enough to last a 4 to 6 month trip, and they believed that the dangers were survivable and a risk they were willing to take, and so they set out. Now, talking a little bit about your animals and supplies, I'm going to circle back around to that.
Circle the wagons back.
We are going to circle wagons, people, and when we picture pioneers heading west, it's easy to imagine like horse-drawn wagons and things like that. Now, horses are fast, strong, and iconic to the American West, of course, but most of these immigrants did not have horses.
Right.
They relied on oxen.
That's what I thought. I got it right.
Hey, that was really good. Oxen are stronger than horses when it comes to hauling heavy wagons. A covered wagon could weigh over a ton.
Yeah, I figured.
Woof, that's a lot. Now, as for cattle, usually these families took small herds with them, and that's what the teamsters were for. They were They were to help with that. So yeah, oxen and cattle. Horses, sometimes.
Okay. Imagine how slow that wagon would be.
Oxen are not fast like horses.
No.
Horses are very speedy.
They're very just slogging around.
Getting back to this. The Donner Party left Independence, Missouri in May 1846. They were one of hundreds of wagon trains heading west that year following the Oregon and California trails. Now, every immigrant knew that there was a very narrow window that they needed to leave, and the sweet spot was between April or early May, and that gave 4 to 6 months to cross 2,000 miles before winter. But the Donner Party didn't actually get rolling until May 12th in 1846 from Springfield, Illinois, and then joined the main California Trail even later at Independence, Missouri on May 19th. That's pushing it. They're already 2 weeks behind. And the delay is because families like the Donners and the Reeds had to sell their farms, gather wagons, supplies, outfitting, all of that, which took longer than expected. Reed in particular outfitted a large, elaborate wagon nicknamed the Pioneer Palace Car with sleeping bunks and even a stove. What's this guy doing?
He had his own little RV set up.
Jeez. Anyways, ambition, not practicality. And at first the journey looked like any other long days across the prairies, oxen plodding forward, children running alongside the wagon, blah, 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 blah. Life continued. In August 1846, Elizabeth Donner gave birth on the trail to a daughter, also named Elizabeth. Against all the odds, the infant survived the journey and later the winter, and one of the youngest carried out alive of the mountains.
Okay. They didn't have time to name her something else. It's like, we're on the trail. What's her name?
Elizabeth.
Fine, works.
Junior. So weird. But cracks started showing. Arguments started breaking out. Tensions were strained. Wagons broke down. Tempers flared. And by the time they reached Fort Bridger in Wyoming, they were already weeks behind. It was there that they heard about Lansford Hastings. This guy. Hastings had published a guide promising a shortcut called the Hastings Cutoff. Of course, name it after yourself. that would supposedly slice hundreds of miles off of the standard trail. Snake oil, on paper, this sounds like salvation. And at Fort Bridger, the immigrants found a letter from Hastings himself urging them to take his new route. He claimed he would personally guide immigrants, though in reality, he had gone ahead on horseback and left notes nailed to trees. That's his guide, with vague instructions. Yep. Here's the thing, because I was like, why would they even, if it sounds too good to be true.
It usually is.
It usually is. But the thing here is time was already slipping away from them, and they were fearing, rightfully so, that being trapped in the mountains was worse than this untested path. Hastings had pitched it as faster, easier, and safer, and the Donners and the Reeds decided to trust him.
Sure.
It looks good. It's probably fine. But not everybody stayed on this course. Along the trail, a few hired teamsters abandoned their contracts, deserting the Donner party to join faster wagon trains, or they headed back east. Like, I figure at this point they were like, this doesn't seem right. You idiots. We're not even going to do this. Others split away before the Hastings cutoff, unwilling to gamble on an untested shortcut. Can't blame them there. Charles Stanton had gone ahead to buy supplies and promised to rejoin them later, while William McCutcheon fell ill and stayed behind.
Okay.
So we're losing people right and left. And then we had other misfortunes that hit before the mountains. Luke Halloran died of tuberculosis in August. That's a slow killer. Near the Humboldt River, a Belgian immigrant named Hardcoop, who collapsed after being forced out of Louis Kesseberg's wagon to lighten the load. Rude. He was left behind and never seen again. We don't know what happened to him. Not long after that, Carls Wolfinger stayed to cache his belongings, and 2 men returned without him, claiming Indians, quote unquote, killed him.
Yeah.
Later, one confessed that he'd been murdered for his money.
Right.
And by the way, me using the term Indians, I'm only using it in this historical context, and that was a direct quote. I will not use that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, just...
You're very PC.
I am very PC. I like to think that just be kind.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. If it bothers somebody, don't do it or say it.
Okay.
That's how I feel about that. Because that doesn't impact me.
Life motto.
It is. Be kind. You're welcome. The cutoff itself was naturally a frickin' disaster. The Wasatch Mountains in Utah forced them to hack a path through dense canyons, sometimes only advancing a mile a day.
Oh, God.
Yeah, journals described oxen straining, wagons stuck, tempers breaking. Obviously, I'd be livid. I'd be like, you son of a bitch, you made me. Like, you know, like with a frying pan, if you have one of those.
Right.
I don't know what kind of weapons girls were given back then. Probably. Here's a curling iron. Good luck. Anyways, then came the Great Salt Lake Desert. Hastings hadn't warned them it was nearly 80 miles of waterless alkali flats.
Okay.
This son of a bitch. Wagons were bogged down in salt-encrusted earth. Oxen collapsed because they were licking salt.
Yep.
And families just were tossing belongings right and left to lighten the load. Like, Jesus, this whole thing.
Shit show.
It's absolute. Mary Graves later wrote that they walked for days with tongues swollen and their footsteps marked in blood. I'd just lay down and die right there.
Yeah.
Like, we're in the salt marshes. It's time to get mummified.
Yeah.
That's me.
I'm with you.
Yep. And of course, these ordeals cost them dearly. Dozens of oxen and cattle died crossing the desert. Families jettisoned wagons and food stores. The animals that did survive were weakened significantly, which meant that the party entered the Sierra with less hauling power and fewer provisions than they started with. This is spelling disaster. I don't know if you're...
Yeah, this isn't going well.
This is not going well. By the time they rejoined the main trail in Nevada, they were nearly a month behind schedule at this point. Exhausted, weakened, food supplies dwindling, the Donner Party had traded safety for a shortcut, and they lost.
Yeah.
And of course, tensions reached a breaking point on October 5th, 1846, along the Humboldt River. A fight broke out when wagons got tangled up. Teamster John Snyder struck James Reed with the butt of his whip. That's fucking biting words right there. Reed retaliated with a knife, stabbing Snyder in the chest.
Okay.
Unsurprisingly, Snyder died.
Okay.
Of course. The immigrants debated amongst themselves what Reed's fate would be. Some wanted him hanged immediately. Instead, they voted to banish him. He rode ahead towards California, a disgrace. A disgrace.
Still got to go, though.
I mean, to be fair, he got clocked in the head with a whip handle.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's good it wasn't like the whip, like, in his eye.
Yeah, but I'm sure it was like hitting him in the butt with the butt of a gun.
Well, I've never done that either, but yes.
Didn't feel good.
No, I mean, I can
I'm sure
understand.
The stab wound didn't feel good either, but...
I think if you hit somebody, you should expect to be hit back. Maybe not with a stab to the chest.
Right. Well, you can bring a knife to a whip fight. Something like that, right?
One of my favorite songs is I brought a lemon to a knife fight.
Something like that,
It's a cute song.
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't own the rights, so I can't play it for you. In any event, in October of 1846, the Donner Party finally reached the eastern slopes of Sierra Nevada. But winter came early. On October 28th, the first storm swept down, dropping several feet of snow in a single night. The mountain passes were sealed under drifts higher than the wagons themselves. Oxen and cattle floundered and froze where they stood. Then snow fell again and again and again, piling deeper each week. Survivors later said drifts reached 12 to 20 feet high by January.
Okay, this is crazy.
Roofs in the makeshift shelter sagged, and bodies of livestock and people could not be buried. They simply vanished under the snow. And later they said that this winter was twice as bad as any that had ever been seen at this point in time.
Why wouldn't it be?
Yeah, this was the worst possible situation to happen.
The trip was fucked.
So the immigrants tried to climb over, desperate for one last push to California, but of course the snow forced them back. Virginia Reed later recalled the adults breaking trail through snow so deep you could scarcely see their heads above it. They made it only a few miles before exhaustion turned them back to the camp. Yeah. So with no path forward and no safe way back across the desert, they split into two camps. The Donner families delayed because George Donner had gashed his hand in an accident, stopped 6 miles short at Alder Creek. His injury grew infected, leaving him bedridden, and the Donner family became increasingly isolated. Most of the others pressed on to Truckee Lake, later renamed Donner Lake, where they scraped together rough shelters against the shoreline. It was here that tragedy struck again. In November, William Pike was accidentally shot and killed when William Foster's rifle went off during reloading. Pike left behind a widow and 2 young daughters. Cabins were built from felled trees. Some had no floors. Others had no proper roofs. Wagons were torn apart for wood, bedding, and scraps of canvas. Patrick Breen kept a diary, and his first entries described the snow piling higher each day, the cattle lost, and the families huddled together in smoke-filled cabins. As Breen's entries grew clipped and bleak, he stated, "Snow all night, continues to snow, hungry times. We pray the God of mercy to deliver us."
Yeah. That's when he's kind of given up.
I think he's given up.
Yeah.
By November and December, the food was gone. The oxen had been slaughtered.
Yeah.
they became the food. Dogs started disappearing.
Yummy.
Even hides were boiled into thin, bitter soup, and bones were cracked open for marrow.
Oh.
This is where it gets not good, guys. Children were crying from hunger while parents rationed scraps. Survivors later described people so weak they could hardly swing an axe or fetch wood for fires. At Alder Creek, George Donner's wound had grown so infected that he lay helpless in bed. His wife Tamsin tended him while also trying to feed and shelter their children. They were in a lean-to. There weren't walls, very little protection. Later survivors said she refused to abandon her husband even when offered rescue, a choice that would become legendary. I'm sure you can imagine what happens to her.
Right.
Yep. Jacob Donner, which was George's brother, fell gravely ill as winter deepened. He weakened quickly and was among the first adults to die there, leaving his children in the care of others as his wife Elizabeth struggled to just keep the family alive. The hides that they had been using as insulation in the cabins were stripped off and boiled. Families chewed strips of leather until their mouths bled. One survivor later said it was tough as horn and black from smoke. That's disgustingly, horrifyingly awful. Deaths continued from exposure and malnutrition. Bayless Williams, a young teamster with the Donners, was among the first to die at Alder Creek, and his death would foreshadow, of course, the losses that would continue. The Breen Diary also shows how the line between thought and action blurred. On February 26, 1847, Patrick wrote, "Mrs. Murphy said here yesterday she thought she would commence on Milton and eat him. I don't think she has done so yet." Milton was her son.
Yeah.
He was 10.
Little nibble.
Milton made it. The Murphy suffering became some of the bleakest in the camps. Widow Lavinia Murphy, already weakened, could not protect her children from the cold and young. Rescuers later reported finding her dead, her body partly consumed in desperation. Several of her children had also perished. So survivors later recalled the sounds of that winter, which were coughing, whimpering children, the scraping of hides in boiling pots, and then long silences while people grew too weak to move.
Bad scene.
I'm just going to keep... You want to comment here?
No.
You want to jump in?
Nope.
You got anything?
Nope.
Is this too much?
No.
Okay. If not for Charles Stanton, the Donner Party would have starved even sooner. Stanton had gone ahead earlier in the trip to get supplies. He came back in October with 2 Miwok guides, Louis and Salvador, along with flour and mules. That flour had to have been like, we're getting bread tonight. Or really, they just choked down the flour directly out of the bag. Yep. And, here's the thing. Stanton could have stayed in California, but instead he turned back to help his companions. These people were not his family. He was a teamster. Survivors later remembered him as one of the few who seemed to think of others first. So that's a nice little ray of sunshine. Charles Stanton, that guy. On December 16th, 1846, 17 of the strongest set out on crude snowshoes, later remembered as the Forlorn Hope.
Okay.
This sounds awful. Their goal was simple: cross the mountains, reach settlements, bring back help. It's a good plan. But this is the mountains in the winter. And they don't care if you're trying a rescue mission. The Forlorn Hope group, wandered for weeks, blinded by snow, starving. Their rations were gone within days. They ate belts, scraps of leather, pine bark. What the fuck? Among them were Mary Graves, who had watched her father, Franklin, die on the trail, Sarah Eddy, and the Foster and Pike women trying to carry children through drifts chest deep. Lemuel Murphy, who was only 12, was one of the youngest. One by one, these hopeful rescuers collapsed in the snow. Charles Stanton was among them. Snowblind and exhausted, he finally sat down and refused to go any further. According to William Eddy, Stanton urged the others to continue without him, lit his pipe, and just sat down and waited to die.
I don't blame him.
At a place later called the Camp of Death, starvation forced decisions nobody wanted. You know where this is going, right? Survivors described talking about drawing lots to choose who would be sacrificed if no one else died soon. Patrick Dolan reportedly lost when lots were drawn, but before they carried it out, a storm ended and several others died naturally.
Thank goodness.
So they became dinner.
Mm-hmm.
They became dinner. Faced with death, the others made the choice history remembers. They began eating the bodies of those who had already died. In the most infamous moment, Lewis and Salvador, the two Miwok guides who had joined Stanton, refused to partake in this dinner feast. When they realized what was happening, they slipped away. Weeks later, starving and unable to walk, they were found by members of the group. So William Foster shot them, and then they ate them.
Mm-hmm. That's what I figured.
This moment haunted survivors. William Eddy later testified that he had tried to stop the killing but failed. Somehow he was the one that shot him, and yet he tried to stop it. And essentially, the death of Lewis and Salvador became one of the darkest episodes of the journey. After 33 days in the wilderness, only 7 remained, 5 women and 2 men. They were gaunt, frostbitten, and barely able to walk, but they had survived. They staggered into a California settlement in January of 1847, which triggered a relief mission back to the mountains. At Johnson's ranch, witnesses said the forlorn hope looked like skeletons walking. One settler described them as ghastly, with eyes wild and sunken, lips blackened, flesh wasted to the bone. Their condition convinced Californians that immediate rescue parties had to be organized. Meanwhile, back at the camps, whispers turned to accusations. Families suspected others of hoarding scraps and food or stealing from neighbors. The Graves family in particular clashed with others. Voices rose, tempers snapped. It's not going good back at the camp.
Right.
You think you could do it?
Eat another person?
Yeah.
Well, it was crossing my mind as, because this is, of course, not the first story that, this has occurred. I was curious, though, me being the cook of the house. Where, what is the preferred, not that you care, but what is the preferred section if you had a choice?
I'm going to say a rump roast all day long.
I know, but, because you got to have a little meat, can't just be all fat, blubber, or whatever it may be. So I was thinking that. Not sure.
At that point, I don't think you really care.
No, you don't. I'm, again, playing.
I don't think you really care.
If you could have a choice.
Here's the thing. I'm going to sound callous and awful here for just a second, and so I apologize. First of all, just talking about meat in general, just general humans eat meat and other animals. I don't have any qualms about any type of animal that I've eaten. Right. Like, it doesn't matter to me. This is going to sound horrible. I apologize. But, the thought of eating dog doesn't, make me disgusted or anything like that. I don't want to be clear. But it's also just meat. So, in that vein, eating humans, the morality piece disgusts me, of course, but the actual act of it doesn't.
But I think it would at the time. If you were having to do this. Now, again, it depends on how far. If you're to the point where you're
starving.
Your brain's already
your brain.
Going, that calf muscle looks fantastic. I
don't even think you think that. Yeah. I think you think that's the only way I'm going to live. I have never been starving, thank goodness.
Hold on,
I've never been.
I draw a line. I'm not eating Ted's penis.
Okay, I don't know who Ted is, and also same. But but I just think, like you said, if you're starving and you're in that place, you've already seen the worst of the worst. Yeah. And it's a very small step to do that. I'm just going to tell you, I know who I am. I know what kind of person I am. I would do it in a heartbeat. Could I kill to do it? I don't think so.
Right.
I don't think I could do that, but this is not the situation that they were
Right.
facing at this point in time. It was strictly, this person is passed. What do we do?
All right.
It's terrible.
Yeah, again, your brain is going to do the
It's
the
going to
thing
handle
that
it for you.
Right. It's just going to take over and go, to your point, this is not a human. This is a piece of meat.
This is a piece of
It's
meat.
disgusting.
Morally it is, but just physically it's not. Right. It's not any different than eating beef.
Y'all freaked out, yeah.
That's the way I look at it. Like, morally, that's bad.
Yeah.
Don't do that. There have been other stories where something like this has occurred, and so many of these people walked away from the situation. They were already scarred for life through just going through the situation, and then they had to live with the stigma of it, and it's just unwarranted. You don't know what you would do in that situation. I do, but I'm already saying that I would do that, but yeah. I was just wondering.
Understood.
I was just wondering what you thought. So, the first relief party set out from California in February of 1847. When they reached Donner Lake, they found families skeletal, barely able to stand. A few survivors were led out, and the rescuers promised to return. So they basically got the most able-bodied people that they could to rescue first. The rescuers were a small group of volunteers, many of them fathers who had left their own families behind in California to help. They had not brought wagons or extra animals. The snow was still deep, so they couldn't even use wagons. They could only go out on foot through miles of snowdrift. And I think they had those makeshift, like pulling, not like a stretcher, but like a pack that they could pull behind them. Yeah. So essentially they had to choose who to take out of there. It's easiest to take the strongest, even though I think there's a moral, maybe, thought process that has to happen there, because wouldn't you want to take out the weakest first? They're the most vulnerable.
They might look at them as so vulnerable as I'm wasting my time.
Yeah. But the strongest at this point in time were mostly children that could still walk. So that's good. They promised the others they would return. Virginia Reed, just 13 years old at the time, was among those led out in the first group. Her father, James, was the one who had been banished months earlier for the stabbing, and her father was one of the ones that helped rescue her to safety. He came back.
Okay.
Banished from the group, he joined the rescue mission.
It's a good dude.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, his family was there. What was he going to do?
Yeah.
The first relief also took several of the Breen children, the Graves children, and some of the Murphys. The weakest were left behind with promises that help would return soon. Some parents made the heartbreaking choice to send children out alone, believing it was their only chance.
Yeah.
I would totally do that.
Yeah, agreed.
Take my kid, I'll figure it out.
Totally.
What are you going to do?
Look, we're going to stick back here and eat a little ass cheek. Sorry. You kids go along.
The second relief came in early March. More were saved, but storms struck again, trapping the rescuers with the immigrants. Several died on the way back, including children too weak to keep moving. Rescuer John Stark, funny name, became a hero when he carried 2 children at the time through the snow, making trip after trip until he dragged 9 people to safety. Jeez, this guy. Among those Stark saved were members of the Breen and Graves family. Other children in this group were not so lucky. Several died in the snow. Their bodies were later found half buried. Survivors remember Stark's strength and determination as one of the only reasons any of them made it back. Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah.
By the time the third relief arrived later that month, the camps had descended further. Of course, at Alder Creek and Donner Lake, rescuers found cabins strewn with bones and half-cooked remains. The survivors did not deny it. They admitted they had eaten those that had died.
Yeah.
That's sad. It was during this rescue that Louis Kesselberg became infamous. Survivors accused him of hoarding food, stealing possessions, and even killing others to ensure that he had something to eat. Rescuers claimed they found him alone in a cabin, surrounded by bodies and a pot of human flesh by the fire.
Okay, that's just gross. Now that's gross. But anyway.
Kesselberg insisted he had eaten the dead only to survive, no different than the others, but the shadows of murder clung to him for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Hard to say. I mean, I can see where somebody would kind of go off the rails and do what they had to do to survive. I could also see the flip side of it, of these people were so at the end of their rope that they were pointing fingers at anybody that they could think of. Maybe he wasn't well liked and he was just an easy target. It's so hard to say.
Yeah.
I mean, human nature at this point would devolve on all levels.
That's, yeah, correct.
Absolutely all levels. I mean, I think at a certain point you just become another animal.
Yeah, that's a good statement.
Humans are animals. One of the men on the third relief was William Eddy, one of the Forlorn Hope survivors. He returned to find his wife and children dead. He broke down at the sight of them. His grief described as almost unbearable. This moment became one of the most personal tragedies of the rescue efforts. He later said that carrying the memory of their deaths was harder than surviving the mountains.
It's rather sad.
I don't. Why did I do this story? I don't know. Reports also noted that Townsend Donner, still alive at Alder Creek at this point, this is when she refused to leave her husband George, who was too sick to travel. She insisted she would not abandon him, even though he was on literally the last legs of his life. She died. Look, I love you, but if I am on my deathbed, I'm dying. I am like croaking out here. I'm just like laid out, half my legs gone because that was dinner, whatever. If you don't fricking get up and leave and die because of it, that's dumb.
Okay, noted.
Don't do that to me. That's not, I'm staying behind to be with my man. Get the fuck out of here. What are you doing? There's no need. The flip side of it is maybe she just couldn't live without him. That's fair. But she had kids.
Right.
It's not about you, ma'am. She's got kids. Yeah, she had kids. Seriously. Let's get back on track after that. Nearly 90 people had set out from Illinois in May of 1846. Families, teamsters, single men, a newborn born on the trail. Along the way, some of them dropped out. A few hired hands quit. By the time the group was snowbound in Sierra Nevada, 87 remained. Of those, 48 survived and 39 perished. The accounts change a little bit. Numbers varied, but that's about the closest count we can get. News of the Donner Party reached the outside world in fragments, of course, because there were 3 separate rescue missions. The first reports came when members of the Forlorn Hope, the 5, staggered into California, telling stories of starvation and death in the mountains. At first, all of these reports were pretty much dismissed as rumors and exaggerations. People were like, that's not happening. Pioneers knew there were hardships, but the idea of families eating each other was not really plausible at this point in time. When the first relief party returned with gaunt survivors, the press jumped on it. Newspapers in California splashed lurid headlines. Horrors in the Sierra Nevada. Another described mothers feeding on the bodies of her own children. We don't know if this is true or sensationalized. It sounds pretty bad. I don't know. In San Francisco, the California Star ran the story within days describing emaciated wretches crawling from the snow. In April, the New York Herald and Boston Courier were calling them the California Cannibals. That's catchy. Mm-hmm. The news traveled as fast as a telegraph could carry it, feeding the public's appetite for disgust and fascination. Again, no idea what is true. James Reed, who had been banished for killing John Snyder, worked hard to shape the narrative once he was reunited with his family. He emphasized the heroism of the rescuers and the suffering of the families, but downplayed the cannibalism, of course. He wrote letters defending himself, reminding readers that his banishment had been unjust and that without his leadership in the rescues, more would have died. I don't like that take. He did kill a man. I know he's a hero and he went back and saved all those people, but then he's talking about, well, if it weren't for me...
Yeah. I don't have much to say because, maybe he's right.
Survivors also tried to reframe the story. Virginia Reed wrote to her cousin that she wanted the world to remember their suffering but also their faith. She insisted that cannibalism had been a last resort and never among immediate family members. I hope not. One of the survivors echoed her. Marianne Graves said, "We did everything we could to live," while William Eddy gave detailed testimony naming who had died, who had been eaten, and who had not, partly to shield the innocent from rumor. Despite this, public memory blurred the guilty and the innocent together.
So there was a list of alive, dead, eaten. It's like an extra checkbox.
Yeah.
Okay.
And apparently family members didn't partake of other family members, but they just let that person go to someone else?
It's like a buffet. Stevens. Adams.
Gross. It's not funny. I laughed. So, what's the cultural impact of this? The Donner Party did not just vanish into the mountains. Their story followed them out and unfortunately stuck with them for the rest of their lives. The moment the rescuers returned, newspapers immediately went to one word, and that was cannibalism. It wasn't about survival, children being carried out with frostbite, the men who went back time and time again to save these people. Nope. Cannibalism. Overnight, the Donner name stopped being about families and it became a spectacle. But the spectacle cut both ways. California boosters hated the story. It threatened to scare off new settlers that they desperately needed.
You
But
might get eaten.
But sensationalist newspapers loved it. I mean, this was great for the people that already lived there. The California cannibals sold more papers than any warning about wagons and snow or whatever else. And so folklore grew. Jokes crept into frontier humor. Grim quips about having someone for dinner. Mark Twain wrote that when immigrants' provisions ran low, they talked about the Donner Party and tightened their belts. Mark Twain, sir. It essentially became a shorthand for bad luck, poor planning, and human desperation.
Yeah.
Hollywood later stripped the story down to gore because why wouldn't they? Novels, westerns, and horror films exaggerated the cannibalism, forgetting about all the families that just lived through this tragedy. Even the land itself was stamped with memory. Truckee Lake was renamed Donner Lake, and the mountain pass still bears their name. On the one hand, you have a cautionary tale about ambition colliding with nature. On the other hand, you have a dark joke about hunger and consumption.
Yeah.
Of sorts. The people sorts.
Right.
This is left out of a lot of frontier myths. California was not an empty wilderness waiting for the white settlers. It was Mexican land, already home to ranchos, missions, and towns. And beyond that, the Sierra Nevada and the Great Basin had essentially been managed by native peoples for thousands of years. The immigrants needed those people. They needed native trails, guides, and trade. Lewis and Salvador, the Miwok men, who had joined Charles Stanton, carried supplies, offered knowledge, and gave the Donner Party probably the last chance of survival that they had. And yet when famine came, they were shot and killed and eaten. That is unbelievable. Native lives are useful until they're not.
Till their dinner.
westward expansion sold itself as manifest destiny, but the reality was displacement, violence, and erasure. The Darter Party's suffering became legend, but the native people who died helping them, their names are barely even brought up as a footnote. That silence is its own cultural impact. It's disgusting. My blood pressure gets up when I get all hot and bothered. I don't like that. That's it, man. That's the whole story. That's it, man. What do you think?
I enjoyed it.
You did?
I did.
He enjoys cannibalism.
No, I enjoyed it.
Did you learn anything?
Yeah.
Like, you had heard, like, you knew the Donner Party was about cannibalism, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you at least knew the name.
Right.
Just not the whole
Correct.
sordid situation.
The whole, everything associated with the trail, the cut through, why it happened. Yeah. So I enjoyed today.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's it. That's the Donner Party. Yep. That's what we do here. We tell stories. And
you tell stories. I listen and learn.
Well, here's the thing though. How much do you really learn? This is a serious question. Mm-hmm. Just how much do you actually learn in these episodes? Because then
no, I learn
and then
retention.
Forget.
That's right. It's retention.
Because I tell you, and I'm like, remember, we talked about the manifest destiny and Edgar Allan Poe, and you're like, who's Edgar Allan Poe?
I didn't go that far, but I hear you.
So, thank you for joining us. If you like this episode, don't forget to follow the House of Six. We are on YouTube. We are on TikTok, both at House of Six. I just started a Facebook and Instagram page.
Yeah, you did. It's blowing up.
Yes, I have 3 followers on Facebook. Oh, that's the other thing. We're going to go official live to tell people that we know about this podcast. Yeah. I'm really nervous, guys, because here's the thing. Like, I'm okay with strangers knowing who I am and what I talk about, but I don't want people that I know to know. So now you know. Yep, so we're officially going live. We drop episodes every Tuesday. Although I keep saying this, everybody's tired of hearing about it. We're moving and packing and moving and renovating and packing and unpacking and moving and all of those different things. So I don't know if it's going to be every single Tuesday. We might skip a week here and there. If you want more really fun stuff, I put polls, funny pictures, my case notes. You can join the Keyholder tier at patreon.com/House of Six. It is fun over there. You can, you know what? Rate, review, subscribe, do all the things wherever you watch or listen. That would be super awesome. A 5-star rating would not make me sad.
Right. All this hard work you're putting into, and all I do is sit here.
Yeah. You're supportive of my dream. Yeah. So, thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.
Stay out of the snow, for fuck's sake. Bye.
Mountains whisper cold and white. Day is swallowed into night. Cabins groan and shadows creep. Children shiver, none can sleep. Footsteps vanish, voices fade. Dreams of summer never made. Snow keeps secrets buried deep. History wakes what silence keeps.